Support is provided by the following sponsors: Shelley Church and Alona Sawin of the Church and Sawin Planning Group of Raymond James & Associates, Inc., member NASD and SIPC. Florida Gulf Coast University, Lutgert College of Business. The Economic Development Council of Collier County, a public-private partnership for economic diversification, created in 1997 with the Collier County Board of County Commissioners. Robb and Stuckey Interiors, in business since 1915, proud sponsors of WGCU Public Media since 1985.
And hello, I'm Rachelle Grossman, and this is Your Voice, our WGCU broadcast where we take a week-long, in-depth look at an important issue to our area, and you become a part of the program. We invite you to call 1-800-809-WGCU or 809-9428 at any time this evening to ask a question or simply to have your voice heard. Tonight we tackle the tough topic of the economy. Where do we go from here? As we try to move forward from feelings of fear and uncertainty to potentially hope and optimism, we'll explore how our region is working together to make it easier to grow businesses and ultimately create more jobs.
The signs of the times can be troubling. Brand new yet empty buildings beg for tenants. The foreclosure rate remains high, the jobless rate topping an historical 14+%, with too many Southwest Florida men and women out of work. The recession still has a tight grip on our region. Many people continue to need government assistance, and consumer confidence is shaky. But are there new signs of hope emerging? Home sales doubled in Lee County from 2008 to 2009. Although many homes are selling below value, the inventories are being reduced. Some companies are celebrating new beginnings, ready to hire again, and economic activity is showing some promise, with the deterioration of the labor market at least slightly abating. The Federal Reserve's forecast reflects a slightly more optimistic future. Southwest Florida economists expect a slow and gradual recovery this year as the financial markets continue to adjust to new conditions. Career and service centers are packed with people ready to work or retrain, and there's promising progress taking off along the airport corridor. The region is working together to rebrand itself as a better place to do business. Local leaders are coming together to attract specialized, high-tech industries to refuel our economic engine. As Southwest Florida moves from a financial climate built on tourism, agriculture, and construction, many feel our future must make room for modern industries, emerging technologies, green business, and new science, while maintaining the commerce that helped make Southwest Florida what it is today.
So where do we go from here? To help us dive into all of these questions, we welcome a panel of experts from the region. Please welcome Jim Moore, the Director of Lee County's Economic Development Office and Director of the Fort Myers Regional Partnership. Tammy Nemechek is President and CEO of the Economic Development Council of Collier County and is Chair of the Florida Economic Development Council. Don Root is the Director of the Charlotte County Economic Development Office, and Dr. Richard Pegnetters, Dean of the Lutgert College of Business at Florida Gulf Coast University. Thank you all for joining us in our discussion today. The first question I have for each one of you, Jim, I'd like to start with you, is just give us briefly your economic outlook for the rest of 2010.
Well, I see it as more of the same. I don't see a big change in our economy. Real estate and the problems with real estate brought us to where we are today, and real estate ultimately will have to lead us out until the housing overhang, which was alluded to in the lead-in, is abated. We will continue to face problems.
Tammy, same question. Your outlook.
I think that it continues to be a trying time for a lot of businesses out there, but I think it's also a good time for us to really rethink how we do business, and I think that that's what we're all doing around the table here, is to rethink that opportunity. So while it's still going to be slow going, I think that people need to remember that this is the time when we need to think about new things that we can accomplish together, and I think you're going to hear a lot about that tonight.
Yes, we will hear a lot about that. Don, talk to us about your economic outlook in Charlotte County.
Well, it's going to be a slow recovery. I don't think it's going to get any worse. I spoke to the Kiwanis this morning, and we talked about things getting better, and so it was a really, really nice conversation. One of the real critical things we did talk about is what should we be doing differently now so that we build an economy that is more resilient in the future. So that you'll be spent probably 45 minutes talking about that. So people are very, very interested.
Yeah, we're going to dive into all of those issues. And Dr. Pegnetter, I just want to get your perspective from the university.
Well, I think the thoughts that you've heard from all three of the economic development experts here focus on how important it is to diversify the economy, and the university has been very actively building itself to play a key role in that by being ready to, as we grow, add faculty positions and programs that are related to the diversification that everyone is trying so hard to work on and move us out of this.
Everybody is talking about jobs, the creation of jobs, and we're going to get into all of that. But before we do, we want to take a look at the unemployment numbers. We do have a graphic that represents where we have been, and they do show Lee County's unemployment rate hitting a staggering 14.2% in January. That's up sharply from 10.9% in January of 2009. February figures, however, show a slight rebound to 13.9% unemployment. In Collier County, unemployment hit 12.6% in February, very slightly up from 12.7% unemployment in January, however, up sharply from a level of 8.8% in January of 2009. And then in Charlotte County, the numbers for February, 13.7%, a little better than the 13.8% in January, but up from 10.7%, which still isn't great in January a year ago. Unfortunately, the reality is that unemployment is much higher than that. According to the Florida Agency for Workplace Innovation, you can add another 8% on top of unemployment rates when you account for part-timers, freelancers, long-term unemployed, and others who have simply stopped looking. Let's talk a little bit about why unemployment, the rates, are a lagging indicator of perhaps economic recovery. Tammy?
Well, I think what we do, for example, in our economic gardening program, is what you find is businesses are going to have to generate new revenue. That's where the jobs are going to come from. And markets are tight right now. People are purchasing less. So until the point in time when people start purchasing more or being able to sell more, or you're going to generate more revenue in that business, they're going to hold tight onto their money, and they're not going to invest it necessarily in additional jobs. And so while they might start purchasing new products or selling new products, they will wait until they're sure that there's certainty in the marketplace before hiring on those additional employees. So even though things might be ticking up a little bit, you got to have the confidence that it's going to stay that way before you'll invest in the employment.
Well, almost everybody knows somebody who is affected by this recession, school teachers to CEOs, electricians to electrical engineers. Your Voice took several polls over the last few weeks to get your perspective.
What is your economic outlook for 2010?
That we can get jobs, because right now I'm unemployed too. I've been laid off myself since September.
I've been all over, and everyone seems to be struggling. You know, it's like, you know, everyone's trying to do better. It seems like people are just scurrying around, like trying to go back to school to try to make a difference, or doing this and that, and it just seems tough with everybody, you know.
Well, I don't see it turning around that quickly. I think it's going to be a while, especially in the real estate market. I think we're looking at a good 5 years before we really see a turn, and I'm a victim of it, so I'm speaking personally.
Talk to me about that a little, if you don't mind.
Purchasing a condo here 3 years ago, and now it's worth half what I paid for it.
I don't know. It's not looking good. I'd lost my job and been trying to find something, and it's horrible. It's rough because we got 4 little girls to support, and my husband's disabled.
I think you have to take a look at spending and see if you can't cut back in some of these areas that we have, and maybe look to the future in that respect.
I think things are getting better. I own a business, and I see things picking up a little bit. And you know, I think the job market's going to get a little bit better as 2010 goes along.
My outlook is pretty good. I'm retired, on Social Security, have a retirement pay. I'm good.
If you weren't retired, how would you feel?
I'd be scared.
What is your economic outlook for 2010?
Well, I'm hoping that things will definitely get better. My husband is a truck driver, and it's been really tough on him. We hear that things are picking up. I see a lot of traffic out here, too, so that's a good sign. Let's see what happens.
I think people are hurting that don't have work. I'm retired, so I'm not hurting too bad, but my son's out of work.
You're out of work.
Been out of work for about a year now.
It's going to get better. I definitely think it will. Something has to happen.
How do we get out of it, this recession?
I don't know. Make the rich people pay more taxes. That's all. Not us poor people.
Been worse, I think. Gotten a little better. Season right now.
It's up to business to get back in the swing of things. When business gets back in the swing of things, they'll start hiring people. Right now, they're doubtful. They don't think they're going to get the business, so they're not expanding their business. If the government would just leave alone the business people, I think the business people could come out ahead and start hiring.
And we do want to remind you that we are live tonight, and we do invite you to call to make any comments you would like regarding the economy, or simply ask a question to any one of our panelists. That number you see on the screen, 809-WGCU. And let's talk now about what is being done to help. Lee County's Economic Development Director Jim Moore is currently in the middle of several campaigns and partnerships to attract more businesses to the region, with, Jim, the final result of creating more jobs.
Right. What we hear every day is what we have just heard here. People care about jobs. They want to know where the jobs are. They want jobs. Certainly that is our focus. To that end, we have tried to put together programs to identify companies that are capable of expanding or locating an operation to Lee County that would create high-wage, high-value jobs. And we have gotten some traction with that, and we have gotten some results, and hopefully that impact will take place over time and inure to the benefit of those that we've heard from here tonight.
Sure, and what you're referring to is the first initiative. That's the $25 million cash incentive fund that provides capital to attract and then grow businesses here locally. What does FIRST stand for?
Well, the first initiative is really a pretty exciting thing. It speaks to Lee County's welcoming attitude toward business. Our public-private partnership, the Horizon Council, took a recommendation to the County Commission saying a differentiator would be to offer incentives, which are becoming a bigger part of locating businesses in this day and age. The County Commission chose to set aside $25 million in unencumbered reserves for us to use to attract businesses. To date, we have had some pretty good success since that program has been put in place. We've created over 1,000 jobs by contract, and which will have an economic benefit according to the economic analysis that's been done for these projects by Florida Gulf Coast University. And it should create a $500 million economic benefit to Lee County over the next 10 years. So we're pretty excited about this and the benefits of the program.
And particular industries you have targeted as well?
There are target industries. The targets are pretty much the same as the state. The underlying theme of these target industries are high-value, high-wage jobs from companies that get most of their revenues from outside the state of Florida, so they are not impacted by things such as a real estate recession or depression, as the case may be.
We actually have a graphic of those targeted industries: life sciences, aviation, shared services, information technology, and manufacturing. I want to talk a little bit about those local companies that have received the grants, and we have another graphic that I'd like to call up showing just how much has been given to attract these businesses and how many jobs they created. Let's start with Paramount Transportation Logistics Services, $300,000 in aid for 100 new jobs. Gartner, an information technology firm, received $510,000 and has plans to retain 346 jobs and expand for 200 more over the next 5 years. Source Interlink, involved in magazine publishing and distribution, received $1 million. Neogenomics will get $300,000, and there are more, like you said, 8 companies right now total, which will account for nearly 1,000 jobs. Perhaps one of the most exciting and controversial industries receiving these funds is a company called Algae Biofuels. Lee County's Board of County Commissions made the final decision to support a grant of $10 million to Alginol. Alginol is a company that is hoping to commercialize a process to produce ethanol directly from algae.
It looks like your typical corporate office in Bonita Springs, but behind these doors, Paul Woods and his company Algae Biofuels could quite literally be on the verge of world-changing science.
Not a lot of people have necessarily heard of algae being a really great source for biofuels, but in fact it is.
Algae, the simple organism, is the cornerstone of Alginol's process to produce the biofuel ethanol. Alginol is working to commercialize industrial-scale, very low-cost ethanol using only seawater, algae in sealed photobioreactors, sunlight, and carbon dioxide, a process that actually puts CO2 to work, consuming greenhouse gas emissions.
In our case, we make ethanol and other green chemical feedstocks for plastics and other chemistries. So whether it be a biofuel like ethanol or butanol or ethylene or polyethylene, a lot of the plastics we use today can come from a completely green source, carbon dioxide straight out of the air, or from an industrial source. And so now you have a completely new way of making a lot of the products we use every day, not from petroleum, but from greenhouse gases.
The process links sunlight and photosynthesis with the natural enzymes to produce ethanol inside of each tiny algae cell.
It's called direct ethanol because inside of one organism, sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water combine with photosynthesis. They make internal sugars. Those internal sugars are continuously and simultaneously, immediately converted into your end product. And so there isn't this separate feedstock that's processed by something and then becomes your product. For us, it's all at once, all in one organism, and the energy efficiency of it is much, much greater. And it changes the economics, it changes your recovery rates, it changes everything about the process. It's much more energy efficient, and therefore it's much less expensive.
Just imagine gassing your car with a fuel that costs around $1.50 a gallon.
We're trying to commercialize a process that's really proven itself well in the laboratory.
When proven, the process should lessen U.S. dependence on foreign oil while simultaneously developing a solution to the carbon pollution problem. Many like the idea of at least partially growing the company here, and granted Alginol $10 million in incentives, an investment that could bring a sea of opportunity to our region.
I think we have very good technology, and so do other people. So they thought, we need to diversify Lee County's economy. Maybe Alginol is the right way to do it.
And this lonely stretch of land off Alico Road in Lee County will soon house Alginol's research lab and corporate headquarters. Alginol's photobioreactors, the containers that generate the ethanol, will also take up the space as part of a production facility.
Does Lee County want to just be construction and beaches? And so, it's a hard choice. And this is an expensive industry. It is. There's no doubt about it. But Lee County puts in $10 million. The contribution by Alginol exceeds $70 million. So it's not like we're not doing our part.
And Alginol's CEO Paul Woods spoke of a partnership between Alginol and Florida Gulf Coast University to create curriculum to home grow, so to speak, local experts in his field. And Dr. Pegnetter, perhaps some of the PhDs over at Alginol would become then adjunct professors at the university. Talk to us about this partnership a little bit.
Well, I think Alginol represents an excellent example of how the university can be more responsive and quick on its feet because we're in a growth mode. Many other universities that have been around a long time would have some opportunity, if there was turnover, to bring in faculty that were focused on things that were involved in some of the economic targets for our growth and diversification. And we have that. We have probably about an average of 10% of our faculty who turn over in a normal way, retire, move on every year. But in addition, we probably hire another 5 to 10% of new additional faculty every year. And staying connected to the companies that are being recruited by our economic development experts lets us partner with them in ways that can have program growth that they find valuable. And for us, it's a tremendous opportunity to have some of the people who are involved in their research and development have faculty roles on our campus, and that will expose our students to these things. It will show up as research partnerships and go after grant opportunities in a stronger way.
Growing the your own talent for these types of companies to hire people that have actually been through the university and perhaps are from here locally. How does the university then become like an economic partner with some of the economic development councils in the area?
Well, a good example would be a company that was coming in here interested in some aspect of biomechanics, bioengineering, any biotechnology. And as we started and continued our growth, we could hire faculty who were related to that field and interest, and we could also look at opportunities to grow programs in that direction and have those faculty members gain more from having that partnership. I think it's a matter of a partnership attitude that's important.
Sure.
And that's
Working
something
together.
we take great pride in, having a very strong partnership attitude with the external economic development community, because we're involved in trying to not only produce people who have capabilities that will fill these jobs, but do it in a way that's meaningful to the kinds of jobs that are being created here.
Let's talk about a little bit about last week's groundbreaking for the iHub, or the Innovation Research Hub at FGCU. Talk to the watchers, the viewers, about what exactly that is.
Well, that I think is actually a good version of what I was just talking about, because we have, along with the iHub, the Innovation Hub Research Park, we have someone who's a partner in that activity in the business community, funding a chaired professor that will focus on alternative energy. And out of that will come additional faculty interests that will connect our faculty and our programs to an economic opportunity and just grow it much more dynamically and much more quickly and with much deeper roots than just having students take courses and hopefully have those courses connect them to jobs.
There's a lot of, I guess, positive feelings then I'm hearing from the university perspective. You're in a unique position despite where, you know, the rest of the region is.
Well, we're scheduled for growth, and so that's a special attribute for us to have in terms of surviving some of the things that go on with the state budget that affects us so much. But one of the things that we've had sustain us and in some cases accelerate things is an amazing amount of support from the private sector, from people who live here, want to have their futures and their family futures help us grow, and have provided us with financial support. The numbers would be impressive if you were talking to someone at a university who was that was maybe 50 or 60 years old. But when you look at the numbers that we've gotten in private support to build programs, to hire chaired professors, it's astounding that that's come with essentially almost a tiny infant alumni base, because most universities raise money from their alumni,
and
we have an impressive group, but they're new into their careers.
Well, certainly the talk of the future at FGCU is certainly uplifting, but unfortunately, consumer confidence in general remains shaken. We have a graph showing just how much consumer confidence has dipped. On the positive front, we had a slight rebound in confidence last month, but we are still well below where we were. In July of 2007, the Consumer Confidence Index stood at 111.9 points. It dipped all the way to just 25% in January of 2009, and right now we're at a level of 52.5%. We talked with Gary Jackson, the director of the Regional Economic Research Institute, for his thoughts on our future.
The unemployment is gradually going to fall, but it's going to fall very slowly. The predictions are that this year we're going to see a little bit lower. Instead of being maybe close to 13.8, it's going to come down a couple points, but it's going to be a slow and gradual decline. So for this year, next year, it's still going to be high unemployment, and you know, eventually in the long run, 2012 and so forth, we expect it to start getting back more to normal. Now, the problem with why we're in this particular recession goes back to the housing bubble, which, we've certainly had our issues here, and it's been a big factor for Lee County and the surrounding counties as well. But also, there's been studies done that show that when you have a financial crisis on top of the housing bubble, which we've had, that these recessions tend to last quite a while and to be much deeper and create more issues for us. The idea is that we've bottomed out. My goodness, this is great. We're finally at the bottom. That means things are starting to improve. I think we're seeing that. I think sales are picking up. I think we're seeing interest. We're starting to clear some of the inventory on some of the houses in terms of the foreclosures and stuff. Those are all very good signs.
And Don Root, I'd like to turn our attention now toward Charlotte County. Gary Jackson had some positive things to say. He thinks maybe we've hit bottom and now are starting to look up. Are you seeing those same things from your area?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think there's pretty decent optimism despite what everybody's been through.
Mm-hmm.
The groups that I talk to, the folks that call me, and they're all hurting. I mean, people are hurting, but I think people are starting to see that things are going to get better. The speed at which that happens is not going to be satisfactory for folks. It's going to be slow.
Because if you're out of a job, you're hurting today.
Today is the issue. Groceries today are the issue. I understand that. It's going to take a while, though, and there's not a whole lot that can be done about that, but it is getting better.
In an effort to help, the Southwest Florida Business Economic Development Partnership was formed, where the region is actually working together to come up with solutions. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I think all of us agree that the only way that we can be successful recruiting, bringing money into the area, which is very, very important, we call that a contributory business, is to do that on a regional basis. That's the only, putting everything together that Southwest Florida stands for, that I can talk about, Jim, Tammy, Dick, to prospects. That's extremely important. It's makes it easier for them to find us, just to start off with.
Sure.
A lot more to talk about, a lot more to present, a lot more reasons to be here. And so it's a much better story for us in Charlotte, and I think all of us are benefiting from that.
And in fact, it's not necessarily like Charlotte County working against Collier County. If something is good for your area, it's going to benefit all of the surrounding counties.
Well, absolutely. We have a lot of fun with Northport, just into Sarasota County, because we're so close to each other, and we always joke about that. But you know, if I land something, people from Lee and Sarasota can work there as well. And for all of us, if any of us have a real prospect that we really want to get here, the question is, if I can't land them, then we need to get them somewhere in the region.
Tammy is chair of the Southwest Florida Economic Development Partnership. Talk to us a little bit about why we need companies not dependent on those three great industries that made Florida really what it is: agriculture, tourism, and construction. Where do we need to diversify?
Well, I mean, as we can see with the economic downturn that we've just gone through, and our data that we analyzed over the last couple of years shows that Southwest Florida was hit the hardest in the state with this economic downturn. And we've had great industries in agriculture, tourism, construction, but it was just too much of the economy was dependent upon that.
Sure.
And so through this partnership and, knowing that this is a brighter place to do business, as we talk about with the partnership, it really helps to solidify from a regional standpoint that we can create a better foundation for our future. And that foundation needs to have a balance between our legacy industries and continuing to support those, as well as another opportunity, whether or not it be an algenol or a life science company or a manufacturing company, something else that can help sustain us, and those businesses that aren't dependent on the local economy, and those that come from outside the area.
It's our hope during this broadcast to introduce the viewers to some of those businesses. Of course, it continues to be said that innovation and diversification are the keys to our region's future. Diesel Mist is one of those companies. It's in Charlotte County. It's hoping its innovative technology will not only create jobs but lessen our dependence on foreign oil while greening up the environment.
Every day, thousands of trucks travel the highways of Southwest Florida. Necessary for commerce, but the diesel they burn is costly and polluting. Enter Daryl Keys, President and CEO of Diesel Mist, newly opening its American headquarters in Charlotte County, Florida.
Absolutely love it. My family have settled in very, very well. Employees like this area, which is obviously an attraction. I suppose from a personal perspective, the stock of housing is very attractive. It's good cost. The expansion space here, not personally, but certainly from a business perspective, there's a lot of space here, and it's cheap space. So that's an attraction for a business like ours, because whilst we may have exciting technology, we've also got to keep our feet on the ground.
That exciting technology is a targeted emerging industry. The diesel mist process promises to drive down both fuel costs and emissions. It works like this. The firm contracts with trucking companies to install special equipment on their vehicles. This equipment allows trucks to burn energy-efficient fuel that is 70% diesel and 30% liquid propane, resulting in fuel cost savings and a reduction of harmful emissions.
It's using, I suppose, an old principle, which is LPG propane. It's been a transportation fuel for many years, many decades actually. And I think the first automobile in the States operated on LPG propane back in 1920 or thereabouts. So what we do is we use LPG propane as a secondary fuel, and our technology applies that secondary fuel into an existing diesel engine. We retrofit our equipment, which is very complex equipment and it's patented as well, onto an existing truck engine. And that allows us then to apply or inject the LPG propane into the cylinders of the engine to mix with the diesel.
LPG propane burns much cleaner than diesel and is about half of the cost.
It's also a very available fuel in the sense that it's the third most available transportation fuel after gasoline and diesel. So there's an infrastructure out there which can support an expansion, if you like, into more demand from road transport for LPG propane.
Worldwide, there are many implications for the diesel mist technology, but for now, Key's focus is on heavy trucks and tractor trailers. Diesel mist foots the bill for the equipment and the installation. Customers pay half of the fuel savings that result.
We supply and fit the equipment completely for free. Yeah, and the way we actually make our revenues back is that we share in the savings on a 50-50 basis with the transport operator.
Keys is hoping to increase his staff to upwards of 60 within 5 years. He says Charlotte County, along with state incentives like the Qualified Target Industry or QTI tax refund, made it attractive to headquarter here.
And QTI incentive is an employment grant where we can claim tax credits of up to $3,000 per employee that obviously we bring on board. It's a lovely area, this part of the world. You've got Fort Myers to the south, you've got Sarasota to the north, not too far away is Tampa, Orlando, so it's a lovely part of the world to live. People are very friendly, it's very clean, the schools are very good, so I'm a great supporter and a great believer in Charlotte County and Southwest Florida.
This is a good time now to check in with our viewers. We want to remind you the number to call again, 1-800-809-WGCU or 9428. At any time tonight, if you have a question for one of our panelists, feel free to call in and we'll put that on air. Jim, I want to give you this question. It's from Carl from Naples. Alginol is a brilliant idea 5 years down the road, he writes. What is happening now to create jobs for non-PhDs and people who are losing their homes?
The question has three parts. Sure. First part, Alginol is not a 5 years down the road company. They have in fact hired people who are now locating and setting up shop here, the first 40 of which jobs have been offered and accepted. So they are jobs coming to Lee County, Southwest Florida now. So it's not a 5-year program. Okay. And in fact, their business plan contemplates 100 people being employed here probably within the next year, high-wage people. Not all of them are PhDs, but they are all highly educated. So first, there is an immediate impact from Alginol. The second piece is, what are we doing for the people here now, today? And that's a very inexact science. And unfortunately, there's no magic wand that says you can create these jobs today for people who have been trained to do things that really aren't applicable, the construction industry being a good example. So there's a complex combination of things with a lot of moving parts that requires re-education, retraining, and the creation of jobs that are more applicable for the years ahead.
Okay. I want to switch gears a little bit now, and again, just reminding our viewers to call. Tammy, I want to give you a little bit of time. You have a lot on your plate in terms of economic development. We've heard from Lee County, we've heard from Charlotte County. Talk to us about what's going on in Collier County in terms of Project Innovation.
Well, Project Innovation was an initiative started about 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, actually, with our board of directors understanding the economy was turning, seeing that there were difficulties on the horizon, not really knowing at that point in time how difficult it was going to get, but understanding that we needed to start thinking differently and acting differently in order to change the economic foundation in which we were going to grow from. And so from that initiative at start, we really created an opportunity for the community to come together and decide that we wanted to create an economy by design, not default. We didn't just want to sit back and let what was going to happen happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we wanted to be a proactive participant in it, and so we spent the next year really working with the community, rallied more than 70 organizations throughout Collier County to come together and create a declaration for our community of what we'd like to see our community transform into, pull together goals and indicators in which we were going to measure that, and a way in which we can all work together in order to make things happen for Collier County.
We have a graphic that represents Project Innovation's goals. The first is to create a shared vision, and the second is to stimulate innovation, a lot of what we are talking about tonight. I want to switch the conversation a little bit to the role that tourism plays in all of this. Tourism is one of the three industries, along with agriculture and construction, that have made up a huge part of Florida's economy. You'll see billboards now if you're driving along our area. One of the interesting things I see is the fact that 85 visitors to our area equals one job. So certainly tourism will fit into our future.
Tourism is a form of economic development, where it's all about bringing new wealth into our community, and it is a huge component of our economy here in Collier County in Southwest Florida. So we actually are working with our tourism folks, basically holding up that 85-to-1 ratio that you just talked about, is knowing that the visitor of today will be the part-time resident of tomorrow, will be the full-time resident, and potentially a business owner of tomorrow. So it really is an important component of what we do.
And certainly the tourism industry has been affected by the recession, and to see how some of our friends in the hospitality industry are faring during this time, I paid a visit to South Seas Island Resort on Captiva for their update.
Tourism is the bread and butter. Tourism is what's going to get people here to experience Lee County for the first time, or come here as a winter bird, or settle here.
It's postcard picturesque. Waves crashing on a sandy beach. Palm trees swaying in a gentle breeze. Lush greens begging for play. South Seas Island Resort epitomizes tourism in Southwest Florida. From its early history as a key lime plantation, it's weathered many a storm over the years. Today, the resort stands resilient in the wake of the economic hurricane of the last few years.
So we are employing public relations strategies, sales strategies, advertising strategies, electronic campaigns, anything that a good, sound business person is going to do to grow their business while maintaining their let's just say in my case, guest list that we have today.
People come to vacation and decide to stay, relocating their business, employees, goods, and services to Southwest Florida. South Seas is among Lee County's top 20 employers for 2010, but like every other industry, South Seas has suffered cutbacks.
Back in 2007, our staff population, our team of population was about 450. We had 100 to 120 international associates that were working with us on a H-2B visa classification. We're down below 50 right now. Now, our employee population has been reduced by about 70.
So far this season, there is renewed optimism. The company is hiring at the local Career and Service Center.
I would categorize it as cautious optimism. We're already seeing statistically the business that we have reserved already for 2010, the next 5 months, meaning March on, we're about $1 million over our booking pace as to what's already booked from the same time last year. So we're seeing that, which I think translates into that there's less uncertainty in the future that people had at the same time a year ago.
And when vacationers come, they'll experience the charm and natural beauty. But in tough economic times, more must be done to keep people coming.
So we continue to add programs and amenities, try to focus in on what the trends are. Right now the trends are on the eduvacation.
An eduvacation pairs fun and relaxation with a little learning. South Seas is offering children's sailing and fishing programs where kids get real lessons on marine life.
So mom and dad walk away impressed that their kids are going to be talking about Pine Island Sound or Redfish Pass or the Gulf in general.
And even with a chilly season so far, pools are packed and the resort proudly boasts its newest amenity, Scully's Family Interactive Center.
So we've reconnected with the DNA that was created back in the days when it was known as South Seas Plantation, really focusing in on the family market. Our mantra is family, nature, and comfort. So we have an increase in bookings in 2010, and the interest for 2011 and 2012 is year over year. It's probably the highest it's been since about 2002.
And certainly a little optimism there. At this point, I would like to welcome David Plazas, the Fort Myers News Press Community Conversations editor, to join in our conversation this evening. And David, I'm interested in speaking to you because you hear from the public. So what exactly are you hearing? Where are they at? What are they saying?
Sure. The public, from what we've seen over the last couple of years, are searching for solutions, essentially, and we as a media partner, along with other business partners, have been able to offer that. To give you one clear example in the foreclosure issue that you've talked about already, people just don't know where to go, where to handle their situation. There might be some local committees. They just don't know. When they pick up the phone and call their bank, they don't get an answer. They get the runaround. And some of the opportunities that we've had is putting together public forums to give people those solutions, to give people answers, at least connect them with folks. That's what people want, is information.
Okay.
You know, they're afraid of losing their jobs. Some of them may have lost their jobs. I had one call last year from a person who had a second home, a condo, and was afraid of losing it. She had been a person who had never, ever been late on a payment, and yet was told by the bank, you've got to stop making your payments, and that's how we'll help you. So people are confused because it's a completely different scenario now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. So then your role then would be to kind of offer those solutions to people. And the news press, though, itself has not been absolved from any hurting economy.
That's correct. You know, we've always been a profitable company, but just with the boom and bust cycle, we rose very quickly. We were the #1 manufacturer in town with about 750 employees. Yeah. We're now at about 400 employees, and that's because a lot of our advertising was based in real estate, automotive, employment ads, and so forth. And of course, with the economy, we had to adjust. But like other businesses that have succeeded, we've had to make the changes, whether it's layoffs, attrition, or whatnot, to make sure that we continue, because our goal is to continue in the future. We've been around for 125 years, hopefully another 125 as well.
Sure, that would be nice, wouldn't it? We had an interesting conversation where I just loved what I heard from you, and it was flat is the new good. So if people are just kind of getting through the day, they are still employed, they can buy groceries, that's actually pretty good right now.
Yeah, that is good, and you know, that comment comes from a local business leader, Gail Markham. We've invited economic leaders to come in and talk to us on a couple of occasions, and about a year ago when the stock market crashes in late 2008, people were like deer in the headlights, and then come a year later, people are much more sober. There's a knowledge of the reality that this is going to be a very slow but painful recovery, and we're starting to see signs in our own industry of a recovery, but it is very slow. It's the onesies and twosies in hiring, not the vast 20 or 30 people hiring, for example.
Right, right. And we do want to remind you this is a live call-in show, and at any time, if you have any questions for any of the people sitting here on our panel, we invite you to call in. The number you'll see at the bottom of your screen there. And this is a good time to ask another question to one of our panelists. Don, I would like to ask you this question. It comes from Lee in Pine Island, specifically Bokeelia. And Lee wants to know, what is local government doing to help homeowners from losing their homes? Apparently, Lee has a home worth $200,000 less than their mortgage indicates, so they're pretty upside down. What can the government do in a situation like this?
Local government, that's pretty tough for the local government. I don't know exactly what they can do except to provide some guidance. If one wants to do a short sale or do something else that makes sense. My daughter is in that situation, and she's going through the short sale process, and it's coming out okay. But it's kind of like we've talked here. She's never not made a payment, so she had to quit making payments. very painful thing. State, federal, I think those are probably the places where the government can have a play in that.
Okay.
But I don't see much going on the local level.
Is the state doing enough to position Florida in a good place for attracting new industry to our state?
Whoa, that's a good question. My personal opinion is that this is the point in time where the state needs to be really looking at how do we do things differently.
Okay.
In Florida. Tammy talked about the three biggies that we've always had. What are we going to do differently from this point on so that when the next cycle comes, you know, we don't have the sort of pain that everybody's experienced? What's going to come out of that? And I personally, I don't see a lot of new and innovative ideas coming out of Tallahassee.
Okay.
I wish I did.
Tammy, you're doing what's called economic gardening in Collier County. Let's
Right.
talk a little bit about that, and then I want to talk to Jim about the non-conventional approach you're doing as well. So let's start with economic gardening.
Well, economic gardening is probably one of those things that I think Tallahassee did get right during special session in January, in at least allocating some funds for existing businesses here in the state of Florida. And through that, the economic gardening program was created. GrowFL.com is where businesses can go and actually register their business to see if they qualify for the program. It's designed for companies between 10 and 99 employees, $1 million to $50 million in revenue. And the idea behind this is that it provides direct technical assistance to the CEO of this company to help them grow their company into what we call a third stage company.
The next level.
The next level.
Yeah.
I mean, as we know with these small businesses, sometimes it's a cycle for them trying to get through expansion plans and understanding what to do with employees. So, you know, it's a great opportunity for us to help our existing businesses.
Jim Moore, turning now to Lee County, you have the Together for Business campaign. It's certainly a non-conventional approach in which you're asking the community for their input and for their help maybe identifying a business that will be attracted to the area.
Right. Well, there's a method to the madness. The first thing is, and it's been alluded to earlier in Don talking about the state, how do you differentiate yourselves in this intensely competitive market? As unemployment goes up, the competition for new jobs and high-value jobs is even greater than it was before. So what do you do differently to get a result? What I've determined and believe to be true is South Florida and Florida as a whole has done a great job of attracting people who have made a lot of money and they can afford to have a second home or retire here. Sure. But they made that money in a business somewhere, and a number of them still own those businesses.
They got friends.
And our idea is simply to engage those folks through their help, the help of our community. Everybody knows somebody who has a business somewhere. And that's the thrust of our campaign. Identify these people and present them with the opportunity, which they've probably not thought much about, is this is a great place to do business. Mm-hmm. Why not bring your business here? You love it here. You're here now yourself. You know, bring your business. And it works.
I want to talk a little bit, if your idea is out there and selected, the website where you can identify some of these business people you may know is togetherforbusiness.com. But if your idea is selective and a business does come here, you'll receive a signed limited edition print by Southwest Florida artist Iki Matsumoto and the satisfaction of helping our area grow. It might surprise you to know that Lee County's airports certainly have a huge combined impact in our local economy, to the tune of about $3 billion a year, and they also account for about 64,000 jobs. I sat down with Bob Ball, the executive director of the Lee County Port Authority, for his perspective on the future of our area.
We have been trying to accelerate certain projects so that we can play our part in trying to stimulate and get some job recovery going. We've gone flat in our numbers, but we're bouncing along and we're more resilient than we're finding any of our counterparts in the state of Florida and those across the country.
So flat is kind of good at this stage.
In my industry, yes. When I complain about having flat numbers, everybody tells me to be quiet because they're having 10, 11, 12, or even more % decreases in both aircraft operations and in passengers, which ultimately results in revenues. We have about $500 million of work that we need to achieve over the next 15 to 20 years, which includes future parallel runway, would include air traffic control tower, would include a taxiway system, and also include aircraft rescue and firefighting station. Because I have a lot of faith in Southwest Florida. There's no better place to live. And when the national economy recovers, we're going to be back growing again. So it's a good time for us to not only be prepared for that, but are there better ways of doing things? And I think, you know, the various economic development groups, the community leaders, our governmental leaders are now saying, well, how do we do things differently? And at the same time, and that's what I love about Southwest Florida, is how do we maintain our ecology? How do we maintain our quality of life? How do we maintain our environment? And I think we're doing an excellent job at it.
And Bob goes on to credit the growth of our local universities and medical facilities, the I-75 expansion project, and of course regional leaders for doing their best to try and attract new and diverse companies to our area with the ultimate solution of creating more jobs. Let's go ahead now and take some more of your calls. Bob from Cape Coral wants to know. And I'm going to let this question go to whoever wants it. What is Economic Development Commission, or the EDCs, doing in regard to the disparity in the property tax structure? Is that even a...
Well, I'll take that. I think the issue comes back down to what we're talking about with regards to diversifying the economy. The issue in our area is that we're overly dependent on a residential tax base. Okay. And the fact of the matter is that it costs us more to service our residents than the taxes that are paid into it. And the way that we can get out of that is having a broader base of businesses here. And that's why we all sit around this table here, is if we don't do that, then the burden will fall back on the citizens who live here. And that's what we're trying to prevent. Is trying to prevent that tax burden being borne by the citizen that lives here in our community. And I think that that's why ultimately all of us support the economic diversification efforts that we do, is because we want to be able to live here and have beautiful places and maintain the quality of life that we've all come here to enjoy.
Do we all need to remember that recessions, depressions are cyclical, and that, you know, this one might be particularly painful, but while it's by no means over yet, it will eventually come back around. I want to go, Jim, to you now. This is a question from Matt in Cape Coral. He says, how specifically will Southwest Florida, all of the counties, deal with the downturn in tourism and still grow?
Well, tourism's not part of our portfolio, but,
sure.
But actually tourism has held up pretty well. Mm-hmm. They have been pretty darn resilient and done a good job of keeping their revenues very near flat. So, as somebody said earlier, flat's the new norm. Mm-hmm. They're flat. But I think you know, in terms of looking to the end of the cycle, if they've done that well through this time, they will do well as the economy picks up and they book more conventions and people feel more free with their money as they feel more secure in their employment.
Okay. And a lot of the talk, and Debbie from Alva, Don, I'm going to ask you this question. She recommends more of these green, she calls it green up and clean up to so many of our industries. And again, I'm just taking a caller question here. Recommending solar rooftops as an addition to our area, trying to get these types of companies in. And we've talked a little bit about this tonight. Is this the ultimate solution? Just totally finding maybe a new economy or a new industry to come to the area?
I think different industries is very important. Solar is a great industry. The solar rooftop program that we have in Charlotte is going to be doing quite well here in the near future. We think that's a real important thing for us, since we have, you know, FP&L's done a number of solar plants now. There's a nice solar plant at FGCU. Mm-hmm. So we think the green industry and alternative energy, you know, alginol, there's a lot of things going on. This is the Sunshine State after all. So I think that's a place for us to really focus. It's one area. There are other areas like pharmaceuticals, which we think is a very important industry to attract. So there's a number of industries that we think we should be bringing that will help us sustain ourselves through the next cycle.
David, I want to bring you into the conversation a little bit too, because is there one particular thing that you can pinpoint? Is it housing that you just keep hearing over and over again from the readers of the news press. What is their number one concern?
Jobs actually is the number one concern.
Jobs.
Being able to maintain the jobs, and certainly housing is part of it, but economic recovery overall. Do I eat tomorrow? We have a lot of issues with hunger, with food security, for example. But one thing I think that's important that needs to be mentioned is the individual initiative, is people have to be proactive, and it's very painful for individuals, many of us who have to essentially rework our own finances and who have to basically say we've got to either start from scratch. But this is a land of opportunity where people always have the opportunity to have a second chance, even a third chance.
Sure, we have just a few moments left in the show, but I want to talk about abrighterplace.com. It is a website in which everybody sitting on this panel tonight is working together to try and just show off what a good area we are to live in. Tammy, do you want to talk to us about very briefly about A Brighter Place?
Brighterplace.com is part of our partnership in order to help brand this area together as a place where businesses want to be and want to grow. And so we're really excited about the opportunity to work together.
Certainly your best efforts. And I want to thank everybody for just listening to us tonight. We certainly hope you've learned a little bit and hope you have enjoyed this economic edition of Your Voice. You can certainly go to WGCU.org for more information from tonight's show. We do hope we've left you with a little bit of hope in terms of our region's economic future. We want to thank our panelists for sharing their insights, our phone bank volunteers for taking your calls, and a special thanks to you for your participation. It's always our mission to have your voice heard. Have a great night.